Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel where the C is always right.
Always.
We're going to be talking about episode 3 of The Rings of Power. Funniest episode for me so far.
Yeah, probably not in a good way, though.
No, it's not a good thing, but it is funny. It's a funny episode. Yeah, so I think we're going to kind of run through. The plan is to just run through the episode, and we'll talk about it along the way, and then wrap up with any other general thoughts. If there's anything left to say by the time we're doing this.
Yes.
I feel the show vindicated me a little bit, I think, because I was definitely right about this whole quest that Galadriel's been on for a couple centuries.
With the mark.
Yeah.
Well, she understands. She thought it was his sigil, but she didn't know what it meant at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like she knew it was his sigil.
Sense? She
knew it led somewhere, but she couldn't quite figure out that connection and what she needed to do to it's ridiculous, man.
He'll do it.
All right, so we're talking about Arondir first. Yes. We open with him after he's been captured.
Mm-hmm.
Here he is.
And they got like rattlesnake or no crocodile armor, the orcs on the back. I don't hate it. I don't. This is the thing. I do dislike the armor of the orcs because, and depending on what they're doing with the show, but in the books, Sauron is a master craftsman, right? And that's what he's going to be in the show. Yeah, but as far as with him being there, and so again, there is not like they're just starting out with in the Bronze Age and working their way up, right? And I think that's how they're viewing it. And I know we've gotten in this before. I just don't think that's the way to go about it.
Yeah, they're they're taking the opposite approach, right? Because the idea was supposed to be that things degrade over time, right?
Yep.
Where with the show, they're showing stuff where, like, even with the hobbits,
it's going to improve over time.
It's going to improve over time to what we see in Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a miscalculation on their part, even though I like the design of the orcs, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like ninja orcs, and then so go ahead.
Oh, so I wanted to get to this because this was something that was confusing me, and I had to go back and check again. Okay, so this is the guy from episode 1, right? His friend?
His goofy friend.
So in the course of one episode, and we get no context for this, right? This is one of the things that was bugging me at the beginning of this episode. So, and his commander is here too.
Yeah. It's like his entire company's there.
Because
there's more elves there.
Yeah, we got no reference for this.
Nothing. No context. That's what the first question I wrote down was: these elves got captured when they were the ones keeping watch over the city.
Yeah, they're real bad at their job.
And it's like it's not that necessarily they can't get captured by the orcs, right?
Of course.
It's that we have no context. We don't see anything. We're not shown anything. How this happened, what went down.
Yeah, they just jumped to this without any sort of like
proper setup.
Yeah, why didn't we get an attack on the tower? Because assumedly, right? So Bronwyn, right? The last thing that we see is her and her son leaving for that tower.
Right.
Why didn't we get, instead of spending so much time watching people do nothing in episode 2, why didn't we get a scene where with this massive budget, by the way, right? So battles shouldn't be a problem. Why didn't we get a scene where the orcs are attacking the elves, and then we get the context of Bronwyn's going to this tower? I'm assuming that because I don't have any other, as far as I know, I don't have any other context for what they were planning to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we know now as the audience that they're headed to a place where there's no hope, right? So there's supposed to be some context to that because that was the tower that they were all out. And then maybe we'll get that when Bronwyn comes back and there'll be like some dead elves there or whatever. But it's so, dude, the way they're going about this. I got
disorienting, isn't it?
I got confused because we haven't seen either of those characters since the first episode, and they're only in it for a couple minutes.
If that.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they show back up, and I'm like, wait, okay. I was like, I recognize those guys. I was like, are they the two? Are they from that first episode? Is that his friend and then the captain from the tower?
Right.
And then I went back and checked, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's who they are. But I'm telling you, man, I got more to talk about with this part of the show. But
I was hoping, I do too. I was hoping that with the show being called Adar, right?
The episode,
the episode, that they were going to focus on the orcs more, if that makes sense, and like, just kind of show. I think you have it right. It would have been better if they would have taken this episode, at least a good portion of it, and from the orcs' point of view, and you kind of see what they're doing, and then they go and attack Osgiliath. Not Osgiliath, but what was that tower's name that they called it? Allah's God. I don't remember the tower. Anyway, and you see them getting captured. The other problem I have in this scene is that you can't tell, aside from the pointy ears, you can't tell the elves apart from the men and women. Right?
Yeah, I can't really. It looks
they all blend in.
And and I mean, we're sitting here slowing it down, so that's one thing. Like I could probably sit here and zoom in and try to figure out who's what. But you're right. This scene is going by pretty quick. I think this lasts too long too. He like takes the time to pick up this thing. He gives it to him. You can see him like walking away in the background.
And here's the thing too, is like when you think about, and this is what I mean, understanding Tolkien, right?
Yeah.
You think about how he wrote. He communicated with professors and just a bunch of different people who were experts in their field, and archaeology, history, geology, geography, so on and so forth, right? And you would think they could have taken this episode from a prison of war standpoint. Okay, well, now the elves all have long hair, right? They get captured, and you just see this scene of, I don't know, the orcs. I say cutting their hair, but just making them all look the same and trying to weaken them and degrade them in a way to where they don't have as much strength as they did before, right? So they're not as much of a threat. And so I don't know, the whole context of this scene just doesn't work for me.
And it gets worse when they get back to it. It gets worse. All right, so we move on.
Oh yeah, we get more shots of the insane Sauron posse, as I'm calling them, or Sauron Slipknot.
Yeah, these guys are really into that metal.
Yeah.
All right, so back to
this is the part that I had to rewatch the end of episode 2 for. So I was like, wait, did we get a shot in episode 2 of them of a boat being by them or whatnot?
Yeah, well, so I thought they landed at I thought they and I was just wrong, obviously, but I thought they had their like raft or whatever had washed up in Numenor. So I didn't think that they were going to be on a boat, and then I saw it and I was like, all right, whatever. And of course they have to do this because they've got to get the like sweeping shot of Numenor. But yeah,
so Galadriel and not Sauron,
or Sauron, not Sauron,
or as I like to call him, not Aragorn now. A cheaper version of Aragorn.
And I sent you that message because his name is Halbrand, and I kept going like, I wonder, because the show's not subtle at all, and we're going to talk about that throughout this. They're oh man, they have there's a definite lack of subtlety. We've already talked about that with the dialogue, but I started thinking about it, and I wonder if his name is just a take on Hellbrand, which could be like because the brand that Sauron is putting on the orcs, and it's all supposed to be like leading back to him. And that's I don't know. It's totally just a theory, but I was kind of thinking about it while watching the episode because what else am I supposed to do when they're taking forever to get stuff done?
I'm kind of wondering is he going to be a Nazgul? Is he going to be the Witch King?
Like are they
more rather than Sauron?
Yeah, like and that's the thing is that they could be. And I think it's definitely intentional. It's obviously intentional that they're trying to throw a couple red herrings in about who Sauron actually is. The only thing is that it makes the most sense that it's Halbrand at this point.
Yeah.
Because we'll see in the episode, they are trying to set him up to be crafty, sneaky, the whole thing with the forge.
Deceitful.
the line from the second episode, what was it, where he's like, things aren't always as they appear or whatever. Yeah. It's just like
so on the nose.
And then, we'll talk about the Hobbit stuff or the Harfoot stuff in a little bit, but like, man, they really want you to think that's Gandalf. And
they
so
really do.
That's why I can't it'll take it. Yeah, and it'll be, I imagine, a couple seasons before we can actually have a conversation about like why they decided to try to sneak around potentially one, if they even know.
Yeah.
Because it's this, a lot of these people are associated with Bad Robot and J.J. Abrams, and Lost was a part of all of that. And Lost is notorious for them changing the stuff in that show because fans figured stuff out that they had originally planned. And so there's part of me that wonders if they know what they're doing going forward. Yeah. There's no way to know necessarily unless someone comes out and says it. That's like Halbrand. Maybe Halbrand was originally supposed to be Sauron, but then they're going to change it because everyone
just because Gary from
knew.
Neurotic.
Yeah.
Everyone know. Let's just be real.
So we'll see. But yeah, they have this kind of little conversation, and she wants to know if the people that are holding them are friend or foe, and he makes a joke. Which is another thing, man. They really want you to like Halbrand.
Yeah,
it's a little stiff,
and the tension between Galadriel and Halbrand, slowly, starting to like each other.
Yeah.
Oh, brother.
And I'm honestly, and we'll talk about this when we get to the scene of them in that the throne room or whatever in Numenor. But I'm honestly confused about what they're trying to get across with Galadriel at this point, because that those first two episodes, they really want you to, it would seem that they really want you to believe that she is this strong, capable leader, even though we're seeing otherwise.
Go ahead, keep on your thought.
But then in this episode, they really push hard on her being this like stuck up, spoiled elf.
Yeah, scowls.
She thinks she knows best.
Of the time.
Like, she's lucky that the Numenorians didn't want to execute her for the way that she was talking to them in that scene. Like, we'll get there, but that's one of the things I find fascinating about this one, is that she constantly is demanding things from people as if she's owed all this stuff, and it's like, what are y'all trying to? It's like, I don't.
This is why we say she's coming off insufferable.
Yeah.
This is an example, and we get more of that through. It's not like they help ease that throughout.
They forgot to.
We'll get there eventually, but the scene with Elendil and her, I'm going to point to that again.
Yeah, and they forgot to give her like the character traits that make her likable despite her flaws.
Yeah, like just something, just one thing, just one thing, right? Because it's not that you can't have your protagonist be someone who, has all these flaws that aren't likable, but then they have this one refining quality about them where the audience can connect with them. But it's just they rush into everything, and I think this is what we were talking about in our last review. In our last review of the first two episodes, we weren't able to get to everything. We weren't able to even really able to get to the second episode that much, but that's what taking the narrative standpoint, one of the problems in this show so far is their framework for it, and they rush through everything without giving things time to breathe.
Oh, and we're going to talk about that when we get back to Arondir, because that is like an egregious example of them not taking time to develop characters. And there's a reason that that's a problem in any type of storytelling, when you don't take the time for a character to become liked by your audience, essentially.
Yeah, and I think, and that's exactly one of the points that you were making in the last episode that everyone on TikTok got in a uproar about with Galadriel. I think if they were going to go this route, it's exactly what you said, in that they should have just taken the time to focus on Galadriel and her team, and then her hunting Sauron, but at the same time, okay, she gets detoured back to Lindon, right? And you get introduced to more characters, but through the entire time, you're meeting the world through Galadriel's perspective.
Sure.
That's essentially what, when you look at the Fellowship, right? That's essentially what happens in the Fellowship of the Ring. You're seeing everything for the most part through Frodo up until they split at the end, and then in the Two Towers, you're getting two alternate narratives running at the same time to the main narrative, right?
Yeah.
Two different point of views, and so I think that's what they should have done here is stick with Galadriel at first, and then from there you can branch off and do more.
And it's crazy because they could have taken their time with the show. It's not like the money was infinite for the most part. I mean, they could have done whatever they wanted.
They could have had less of a budget and done better.
Yeah.
If the writing was better. That's the main thing. And I think with all the CGI in it and how they set up scenes and different things like that, it's just, guys, if y'all would have had better writing to where, again, it's more of a character-focused show.
Right. Which is, I mean, let's be real, like, Tolkien's work is very character-focused. He spends a lot of time setting up the hobbits. I mean, the Fellowship, they don't get out of the Shire for just about half the book. Like, if we're counting the Tom Bombadil stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Aragorn doesn't get introduced until about halfway through the book, and then things like speed up because you've learned about like your core group of hobbits, and then they start introducing some more characters, and then things start to expand into towers, and you have the different, and so it's very thoughtful in the way that he does things, and some people hate it. Like, some people think that he goes too in detail, but then like they'll praise George Martin for it too. Good old railroad. Like that dude will sit and he will have like pages about the food on a table.
Yeah.
And I think he gets that from Tolkien. Like, I think he was actually inspired in some ways by Tolkien to write in that style. And detail's great. And honestly, when you're reading, if you want to get past that stuff, it's like, okay, he's just sitting here talking about the details of a table. Like, I can move on because it's not the stuff I'm really interested in. Anyway, this again, I was talking about the elves being stiff in their acting. Yeah. Last episode or in the last review, but this is the same thing, man. Like, this guy in particular stood out to me. He just like I think, let me see if I can. Yeah, the way he's like walking or whatever, and just like everything in this guy. Like, hang on. This guy right here, what is this? Why is it like he's not moving? It's like he's frozen with his head turned towards Galadriel. This guy doesn't even care back here. He's just like, whatever. Like, I don't understand why they set these people up like this.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you on that. I wanted to say, to add to your previous point, that one of the things with Tolkien is that everything seems to be like a journey, right? Uh-huh. And so you're taking this journey in The Hobbit and in The Lord of the Rings. Primarily, you're learning about the world and everything going on this journey with the hobbits. So they're our introduction to everything again until you get to the Two Towers, then it splits off. Right. But so I think on this, what they should have done is taken on us on that journey and introduced us with the world through Galadriel. Yeah. If they wanted to use her, I wouldn't have done it that way. I would have done a Second Age show differently. But if this is the route they wanted to go, okay, no qualms about it. Just make it good. Yeah. And that's the problem, is that we're not, they're jumping so fast, they're doing time travel so fast. We're not going on a journey. This is the first episode where you kind of actually go on a journey with Galadriel, in the sense of you're seeing the scenery, you're seeing Numenor, you're getting these sweeping shots constantly. Good night. Ton of sweeping shots.
We'll talk about some of the cinematography in this.
But you get what I'm saying? It's like with Frodo, for example, in the Fellowship, you're seeing all of Hobbiton, you're seeing all of the Shire, you're going throughout the world with them as they're traveling slowly.
Dude, you have clear indications of the passage of time too, which this show does not do. And I'll have to ask you about a couple of them in this, because they're, as far as like lore is concerned, even though, and I should have said this up front, we need to be very clear. This show does not care about Tolkien's lore. It clearly doesn't. Like, they're bringing stuff in, and I'm like, as someone who's not as familiar as you are and some other people are, I'm going like, Isildur, is he supposed to be here?
Here's the thing. the way they're sticking to Tolkien's lore outside the name is they're being like, hey, you see Feanor's hammer?
Right.
Easter egg.
Right.
That's essentially it. You know,
get
there's not
Elrond's brother in that horrible painting later on.
yeah, Elros. But
let's talk
about Elendil's probably the most, I don't even want to say character accurate to Tolkien, but at least more so
him, right?
Has somewhat of the embodiment of how Tolkien wrote him.
Yeah. This is Elendil.
But that move armor, yeah. That's Elendil.
So I love the dialogue in this scene. I think it's hilarious because they ask where they're going and he won't tell them. Like it's so funny because all of the dialogue and why he won't tell them is supposed to lead into this like grandeur of seeing Numenor.
Mm-hmm.
But it just comes off weird.
Yeah.
Because she's like, "Where are we going?" "Oh, I can't tell you that." "Oh, seriously, like what's going on? Where are you taking us?" "Home." Great, man.
Well, I think his whole thing is you're about to see.
How? You know? Okay, but here, and this is another thing, is that Galadriel in this, and I'll talk about it from this perspective first. When we get to Numenor, and I'll speed it up a little bit so we can actually get to that part. When they start coming into Numenor, it's not until... So Galadriel, how old do you think she is, or roughly, in this time period?
Well, she's supposed to be like, book-wise, 5,000-ish years old, somewhere around there.
Okay, so we'll use that as just...
But from how they presented it, I would assume, man, because they kind of went through the first age to the second age really fast. I don't know, centuries? I don't know.
Right. So we don't have like even if we said like 1,000, right? Like if we put an age range of somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000 years old, wouldn't she recognize the Numenorians? She's on this very distinct ship. It's very distinct.
I was going to say that, but you did it for me.
She goes, "Where are we going?" And she's not paying attention to their armor, to their ship. I imagine that the Numenorians would have a specific accent.
David, the only sigil that Galadriel recognizes is Sauron's.
Yeah.
Because Numenor didn't leave their mark on her brother.
And so we keep, again, going back to that very first part where they go into the ice troll cave. She puts the water down on the thing. We're being told that she knows a lot, but then we keep getting told the opposite.
Yes, and that like, CGI of this scene is bad, too.
It's not very good,
not necessarily this part, but the part before that.
Yeah, I feel like they were definitely trying with the design of Numenor. But again, the visuals, it's so funny, though. Like, people want to completely disregard visuals. We have to make sure that we don't do that because cinematography is important, everyone. The problem is how they decide to use it. And
that's one of the... So I will say this. I want to compliment them on this, at least with this scene in Numenor. If that we're about to get, it feels lived in, right? We're in the streets with them and stuff like that. I think the problem is as an industry as a whole, which affects this show too, is Peter Jackson like one of the only few people who ever used miniatures? Because I think having more miniatures and going down that route to where you get to see the cities and the walls and the streets and everything of each one, like Lindon, Rhaegon, Numenor, so on and so forth, would have been better.
Miniatures were a thing. I don't know when they stopped doing it, honestly. They were a thing for a long time.
Star Wars used them.
Yeah. Even stuff like the Underworld movies used miniatures.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was actually, again, I've talked about this on our podcast, but I used to watch like directors' commentaries on DVDs back in the day, because before YouTube and before you had a lot of behind the scenes features, one of the best ways to know about that stuff is that the director would sit down and do a commentary. I guess you could almost, in a way, it's similar to like podcasting, but he would sit down with the movie in front of him, he or she, and would talk about scenes. And so they would be like, "Oh yeah, this scene we used a miniature so that we could make it look like this helicopter was crashing in and exploding. Because it's safe, and you can make it look really good. But yeah, they don't use them as much anymore, and you're right. I wish they would bring that back because Lord of the Rings used a lot of them. Lord of the Rings might have been the first time I heard about miniatures.
Yeah, it was for me.
But I specifically remember watching one of the Underworld movies and him talking, and the director of that talking about.
Nice. But yeah, I don't hate the design of Numenor. I think great.
You love that, like they love focusing on the towers and these little details of like, hey, that was in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the member berries. Remember this?
We get that a little bit later on too.
You know, the inspiration, would from Gondor would come from Numenor. So dude, I don't really have an issue with that. Yeah.
Look at this. This look. It looks exactly the same.
Yep.
Hey, do you think someone's going to throw themselves off of it in the show?
I hope so. I hope so.
That's incredible. This is why I like to go back through and do this, because you pick up on a lot of details that get overlooked because you're not able to see it. They really go through everything.
And she's still scowling. Dude, Galadriel, she's not thankful at all for being saved.
One thing I'm really glad is that they finally get her out of these like nightgowns in this episode. I didn't mention it in the first episode, but it was weird that it looked like she was wearing a nightgown out on that battlefield when she was stacking that ridiculous pile of helmets.
Yeah. But I just find it funny that she's not thankful from being saved from what we know was certain death on the raft. And this goes back to the I guess second episode when she decides to jump in the sea. I didn't bring this up, but it's like her jumping where she jumped off at would be like swimming from Indonesia to California across the Pacific. What is she, freaking married to Michael Phelps or something in the show? Like, who can do that? And she's, and that's what I mean. There has to be stakes in the world, you know what I mean? And logic and coherency. And you have to be able to establish that. And we get this, okay, she jumps in the sea and then she randomly gets saved by a boat that just happens to be passed by. And the people from there, from the Southlands, how they get all the way to the Sundering Seas, who knows? Doesn't matter. So the plot needs them. But we're going to get more of that in this show.
The only thing that I'll argue, and this is only if this turns out to be true, is that he may be lying about that.
Okay.
Halbrand might be lying about the whole Southlands thing, because I've heard that point as a common, and I don't disagree, because we don't know, right? We don't know. We have to, as the audience, what they're telling us of who Halbrand is currently. Is that's where he's from. And you're right, that's ridiculous. And to add to your point, why wouldn't Galadriel be like, well, how did you end up here? Why would there not have been a conversation about how this group of people from the South ended up there?
Yeah.
Like, what were you doing there? Why are you guys here? What happened?
And Galadriel's characterization, she's in the Second Age. She's married to Celeborn at this point. She's been taught by Melian the Maiar, where she gains, most of, 90% of her wisdom and her lore understanding. And so why wouldn't she have the perception and wisdom of seeing Halbrand for, maybe she doesn't know exactly who he is, but knowing she can't trust him?
Well, they have to write her as clueless at specific points. Otherwise, the plot doesn't make. Yeah, the plot can't work.
I know. It's just bad writing.
This was when I told you while I was watching this that they have like the worst lack of subtlety in the show, where it's like, hey, look, a forge. Wonder what that means. It's like ridiculous, dude. All right, so I believe we get to, this is where they're in, I'm assuming the throne room.
Yep.
And again, talking about Galadriel being kind of insufferable to be around. She demands all these things, she gives like her title. And again, knowing, right, that there's bad blood. We are being told that there's bad blood between the elves and the Numenorians. And she comes in here like she is their queen and should
Yep.
be given everything. And you're like
she's supposed to be wise. Wouldn't she know how to, still be prideful in the scene, right? If they want to go about it, but she's crafty and tactful and understanding in her, speaking to them, right?
Yes.
And so it just doesn't make any sense. And again, we go back to how not Sauron already knows how antagonistic Galadriel is after only a short period of time.
Yeah.
And so he's the one that has to carry her because she's just full of piss and vinegar.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess that personality trait is going to disappear at some point.
Yeah.
I imagine they have a plan to do that, or at least that's what everyone online keeps telling me. But it still bugs me because, again, if she's even 500 years old, she's seen things, she should have an understanding of the way you interact with people.
Yeah, how to be diplomatic.
Right. Her pride and arrogance, if it's going to be a characteristic that they're going to give her, needs to come from the fact that she's lived so long, not just because.
Yes.
There should...
Exactly. And why would the Numenorians just tell her to get bent?
Yeah.
If they hate her.
Yeah.
Like, put her on a raft. See ya. Go to Middle Earth. I don't give a crap.
I don't know. I'm not really a fan of the design of any of the costuming in this either. I don't know. It's odd to me. I can't really put words to it. So they go through this whole thing. She again starts talking about she's like, if blood is needed for me to leave the island or whatever,
I'll give it.
So be it or whatever. And it's like, what are you doing? What are you talking about?
And it just gets better from here on out.
So I can't remember if there was any other notable dialogue in this scene.
I don't think so. Halbrand just comes and calls her Tarmiriel right there, good queen. And Tarmiriel, again, isn't the queen regent. Alfarazon usurped the throne from her. And seemingly they're showing Tarmiriel. Again, it's hard to make much of a judgment because we don't have that many scenes of her. But it appears they're trying to show Tarmiriel as antagonistic to them, too.
Yeah, because they set that up at the end of the episode, right?
Mm-hmm. And then... another prophecy. There we go. 500 prophecies for this show. And so they set her up as antagonistic towards them for right now, but I'm sure they're going to change that, obviously, with what we've seen from the trailers.
Yeah.
But this isn't how she's written, and I think they should have just kind of stuck to how Tolkien wrote it, obviously, and then you get more of the backstory. You see her working behind the scenes, being on the same page with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And being being a good character. Because again, I don't think, if I remember correctly, Tolkien really didn't. You could go the route of her being against them too, is what I'm trying to say. But I think it makes better for going to the route of her being a good guy in the show, or a good woman, right? And working behind the scenes and showing that while she's been usurped by Alfarazon and, is her, he's the king and she's the queen now because he marries her, forces her to marry him.
Right. Oh, okay. We got to talk about this.
Oh, yeah.
So this was so out of place. It was really weird that Halbrand does this. Hang on. I think I missed it. All right. So he comes in and he gives this dude a hug. It's real weird. I don't know.
He stole Galadriel's dagger back.
Yeah, because
right in front of the Numenorian guard.
Yeah, you can see these. Hang on. So you have these people over here, right? This woman clearly sees what's going on. So does this person. I think these people up here, and there's guards up in this left-hand corner that you see in a second.
Right behind Halbrand too.
Right behind them. There's one of them right there.
There's one right behind Elendil, and then and they're right behind Halbrand right there.
Yeah. And yeah, so all these people right here were in the view of Elendil's back, would have been able to see that.
Yep.
And these two guards up on the steps that they're only showing this guy right here. And it's fine. He gets away with it. And he's Sauron, right? So it's probably magic or
whatever.
He's deceiving them. And I'm telling you, man, if he is not, and that's you know that'll be the thing, right? It's like if he turns out to be Sauron, they'll be like, well, he can deceive people, so they probably just didn't notice because he didn't want them to notice or whatever. There's always an excuse for
bad writing.
For yeah. Bad. I would probably call this more bad direct. I mean, it's more bad direction than anything because someone had to tell him like, hey, this is how we want you to set this scene up. Like you're gonna come in to give him a hug or whatever, and this is really you stealing the dagger back for Galadriel, and then he gives it back to her like in the middle of all these people. Yeah. I guess they're not really paying attention at this point, but there are guards on either side,
right on either side of them,
and he just gives this woman that like they aren't, that they're a little suspicious of, just gives her back the weapon, no big deal. So yeah, here are the guards right here. Yeah. You get to see them a little bit better.
Nothing to say. And how you gotta think too, she has to hide that, and she's wearing a gown. So what?
Yeah. Well, dude, she did it in the last episode somehow.
Just saying, unless she has like a slip somewhere we're not seeing. But.
Yeah, she's sticking it up her sleeve or some garbage. Yeah, these two guards that are right here. It's like, hey, you can't have that. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So
and then there's this scene with the Queen Regent or Tarmiriel talking with Elendil and saying how his name is uncommon, but that's not true because the fourth king of Numenor was Star Elendil. And I thought that was hilarious, specifically because for those who know Elendil, and I wrote this down, they not only do that, but they essentially make Elendil's character backstory, a nobody, right?
Yeah.
Nothing. Like he's rising from the ground up. No one knows anything about him, but that's dumb because his father was Amandil, who was the leader of the faithful and a close friend of Alf-Arazon before Alf-Arazon went, got manipulated by Sauron and became evil. Amandil, Elendil's father, is the one who sailed into the west to the Valar to get the Valar to essentially save Numenor and to forgive the Numenorians for how they've been acting. And Amandil was one of the faithful, essentially, meaning friendly to the elves, right? And he never ended up returning back to Numenor. Now, the thing that makes that interesting is after Numenor gets destroyed and Elendil and Isildur and all of them are sailing, a wave carries their ship to Middle Earth.
Okay.
And so kind of have like, is that did Amandil stay in Valinor and the Valar helped him or whatnot, so on and so forth. But so this whole idea that Elendil's an uncommon name and he's a nobody, I don't like.
Yeah, they're just trying to, dude. It's more of that like borderline mystery box stuff, where everything has to be kind of secretive, or they're trying to like play tricks on you rather than just going for what it really is.
Yeah,
and who they really are. It's just
his
it's
armor sucks too.
Oh, dude, this does
that
not
move
yeah.
right there.
Yeah, it's very subtle, but it is there. Yeah, it looks like he's got kiwis on his shoulders. It's very weird. And
now we get
all of it is all of this is to lead into who his son is.
Isildur.
Yeah, this was one of those moments where I was like, I'm confused by the timeline because like I know that Numenorians live longer than normal men, but I didn't know that. This is why I don't know where they are, because so Isildur is involved in the Second Age,
right?
That's right. That's correct. So he's around during the fall of Numenor. So then he
saves the sapling from the tree.
Okay, and is that the one that's in Gondor? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
He first plants it in Minas Ithil, where you remember the scene in what was it, Return of the King, where the Witch King, Frodo and Sam essentially get up to that gate. Not Mordor's gate, the Black Gate, but the other gate where the Witch King shoots his magic up in the air.
The green stuff.
Yep, that's Minas Ithil, where he originally planted it, and then stuff ended up going down, and he stole it again and planted it again in Gondor.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's where the timeline stuff's confusing for me, because so the battle with Sauron where Isildur cuts the ring off in the movies.
Yeah.
Is that Second Age?
Yes, and then after that is what starts the Third Age.
Okay. I'm caught up. That was confusing the crap out of me because I'm just like, and again, I it needs to be noted that some of this, they're gonna speed this up, is my assumption.
Yeah.
So things that take hundreds of years are going to take a couple, maybe 10 at most. Because I can't imagine that they're gonna do set all this up, do Fall of Numenor, have the battle with Sauron. You think they'll end the show there? Do you think that's what it leads to?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what it's going to lead to.
And then one of the last shots will be Isildur floating down the river, dead because he took the ring. Okay, yeah. We're good. I can't. There's not really anything to say about that. Then it's just it was kind of like, oh, okay, so here he is. Like we're going into this too. So he's doing his sailing stuff. With his homies. They're working real hard. Was there anything in here you wanted to talk about? I guess the
CGI was bad in that scene when the guy with the rope, and then this, the sea is always right.
So this is very.
And I don't like his horn being a seashell. I don't like that design either. That's stupid.
It should have just been.
I'm sorry.
If they were going to do a conch.
Too on the nose.
Yeah.
Like yes, we get their sea people, but they're not idiots either.
Yeah.
Like they know how to make a freaking regular horn. Yeah. Come on.
So
it's just like that's when we talked about purple prose.
Yeah.
That's it in a design aspect.
Yeah, agreed. And one of the things that's interesting about that line, "The sea is always right," that it's very Game of Thrones-esque. Just like they don't understand though. It's like okay. So we have these people, they live on an island and they sail boats. What could their motto be in the same way that a Lannister always repays his debts is a line? And I can't remember, you have like, oh shoot, it's been so long since I've watched OG Game of Thrones, some of the lines from it.
A Lannister always repays their debts.
That's the one that I remember. I know there's some other ones. I won't take the time to look them up. Let me know down in the comments your favorite quote from a house. But they all have them.
From Game of Thrones and House of Dragons.
They're specific to that house, and it's a code that they live by. And so that's what they were trying to do. They're trying to
give them that. And the tribe alpharisms in this show crack me up, dude. There's more. We're gonna get to more. There's one in the the elves being captured by the orcs that the captain says that crack me up too. But yeah, so the sea is always right, and that's going to be a key point for this show. The
seafaring house in Game of Thrones, it's what is dead may never die. I think that's what it is. And so it fits into the world, right? So this is the difference between something that has like world building and something that has been crafted by George R.R. Martin and shown on the screen, is that it makes sense for who those people are.
Right.
Because and forgive me guys, I cannot remember for the life of me the name of that house. They're seafaring people. They know that death could come for them, but they essentially have given themselves over to that already.
Right.
So they don't even, and so it's got a lot of deep lore to it based on that group of people and the way that they live their lives. Where for this, it's just like, well, they sail, so like they must like the sea. So the sea is always right. But then you think, what? Okay, what?
Like, I forgot on the boat too, where you get the whisper of the lady's voice. Isildur.
The ring's already calling to him, and it's not even. It hasn't even been created.
I wrote, "Who is whispering Isildur's name out in the sea?" It's fine. It's just like there's so many different aspects. They're plugging too many things into the storyline at once.
Yep.
You know what I mean, and not properly being able to handle them all well.
Yeah.
Too many characters. Again, I've already explained it, but the narrative framework and focus of the show, I think, is wrong.
Yes. So now we're going to talk about.
Because in a sense, that's a mystery box. That's a prophecy. We got the one with Theo with the sword, right?
Yeah.
Sauron's sword.
The
what I'm
literal
calling it.
dwarven mystery box, which is
If
probably
that's a Cimmeril, dude, I'm gonna be so mad if that's a Cimmeril.
Everyone's pretty much on the same page that it's probably Mithril. Because the Balrog's supposed to show up in the last episode. And then that's another thing. You want to talk about like another thing where I'm so confused about when things happened in comparison to the books, because they find the Mithril. We're assuming that is Durin's Bane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, but Gimli went, so like Durin's Bane doesn't destroy I was about to say more.
I'm gonna die laughing because Durin's Bane doesn't show up until the Third Age. By the way,
yeah, and that's where I'm so confused about timelines in this, because I'm just like, guys, I don't. Again, not knowing as much as other people, I'm like, I don't know. It's like Gimli's been to Moria, and so it's like, but Durin's Bane is gonna be around in the Second Age. Like, are they just gonna? It's so, oh, dude, it's so weird. Okay, so, I know everyone's gonna hate me for this.
Okay.
And it's not about writing. It's nothing else. But I'm crushing hard on Isildur's fake sister. Dude, she like showed up and I went, oh, hi.
Hello there.
What's
her name?
Funny, dude.
A Ren alien? I don't know.
I can tell you because I had to scroll down IMDb to find it. Oh, shoot. Hang on. Can we go back to... Earien. Erin. It's basically like Aaron, but spelled weird, and probably it's got the like umlaut or whatever over the A.
David's like, hello, Aaron.
Yeah, I was like, hi. She's like a relatively new actress too. She's been in 3 like small films before this, like 2019.
Hey, good for her.
Yeah. So anyway, I just had to mention that because no one's talking about it, and I'm like, oh, hi. Anyway, so nothing really happens here. I don't even remember if any of the dialogue.
It's not anything worth much of anything.
Yeah, they're kind of messing with him. They do like the joke where Isildur cares more about his horse than he does his own sister.
Yeah.
And they mentioned something else about like, oh, like his friends are like flirting with her, and it's like, hey, you don't want to like just grow into like an old hag or whatever. And she says something about like never aging, and I'm like, I wonder if that's like a thing that will come up later on or something. I don't know, man.
Yeah. And before this shot, we get the scenes of Nimloth's leaves starting to fall to the ground.
Wait, where is it? Oh, here it is. It's such a quick, dude. I didn't notice this until I was going back scanning through the episode.
Yeah,
I missed the tree completely. And
it's easy. Oh. If you blink, you'll miss it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It's a couple seconds.
You see the leaves falling down, and that's symbolic of, the line of the king, right? Mm-hmm. Is falling. It's felling. So this is where Tarmiriel questions Elendil's loyalty. Are you an elf friend? What does your name mean? Oh, it has another meaning, doesn't it? It means elf friend. And, oh, yeah, well, you need to prove your faithfulness to us. Here, take this sword.
Does the heavy-handedness of the sort of, like, disdain for the elves annoy you?
Yeah.
It's a little over the top. It's like everywhere Galadriel goes, they keep doing the thing. Or, that happens with Arondir in... Yeah, where they're just like scowling and staring at them, and and it's just like, again,
you
it's just
arrived with the she-elf.
Yeah, it's just not subtle, and I think maybe that's my problem with it, is that it's like you can establish, which they did, that people don't like the elves, that people have an issue with the elves. You can even have conversations talking about why that is, and but when you get this far into it. And it's just like every one of the Númenóreans on that ship earlier in the episode is just glaring at her. And they've all stopped what they're doing on the ship in order to stare at Galadriel, because they have to remind us, again, how much people don't like elves.
And I like the dialogue of Alf Arizon and him saying, in the earlier scene, I think is captured great. A great way to capture that is him being like, "Oh, we would certainly not, make an elf of the Noldor or whatever a prisoner. You're going to be our guest, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, a manipulation and
Yeah.
things like that. That's a better way to go about it than just constantly being on the nose with it and pounding the audience over the head with it." But I think this idea of them using the map from Numenor going across the Sundering Sea to Middle Earth,
That's so funny.
I think is at least the world building I think in the show is poor, but at least that's something they did right over The Witcher. Now we're about to the Southlands.
Man, all right, we're gonna be here for a little bit. So
let's get ready.
Yeah.
First off,
I know you
orcs
have
don't hate the sun because it burns them. They hate the sun because of its brightness.
Yep. Because they live
Jeez.
underground. They're not vampires.
No.
We get this whole explanation for like what they're doing, which they were like building tunnels to capture people.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll
move underground, to hide from the sun.
Yeah,
to make their own realm.
They're doing something with that because it gets revealed at the end of the episode that they're like trying to, and they think it's Sauron. And I was confused by this, and this I had to listen to this line a couple times because he goes, okay, so apparently Morgoth has a successor. Mm-hmm. Now, if you hear that, if I said apparently this person has a successor, would you think that I would know who that successor was? Because I thought otherwise. I
think so. They know they know that Sauron was his, second lieutenant in the first age.
Right.
The elves would, all know that, but them saying that, who is this Adar? And then he says, well, Sauron has gone by many names in the days of old.
Yeah.
And so it works for me. I don't necessarily mind that, but I get when you're a general audience where you're coming from being like, what?
Yeah, well, for me, it was just a thing of, okay, so apparently Morgoth has a successor, but it seems he already knows that it's Sauron, so it's like, why are you saying, I'm probably nitpicking here, when he says apparently, right, it's like, why wouldn't you say something like, apparently Sauron has risen to power. Like there would be a conversation here about, because the part where they're like, oh, he goes by many names, which I don't know, a lot of it just still seems really on the nose for me, the way that they're doing the dialogue. Like they're trying to give you exposition about everything through these small conversations.
Yeah. I think it would have been a better idea to not let the audience know, oh, so Sauron went by many names, and this could be Sauron and stuff like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think just take that out and come up with new dialogue to where you don't have to let the audience know by telling them. You could have shown that in the prologue or show that as throughout the season,
Sure.
or series.
Sure. There's definitely ways to go about it. I just found it odd. It just felt, maybe it just felt clumsy. Maybe that's what I'm trying to go for, is that it is like, okay, like Sauron's around. I get, I'm just like,
but yet and again, not that they wouldn't have been fooled, but we go back to, how did they get captured? Why weren't they expecting this when they were the watch over the entire region? They just fell asleep for 70 years. Like, what exactly happened that provides a setup and a reason for them overlooking the orcs in this area. You know what I mean?
Because they've been here for a long time. 79 years is what we were told, right?
Yeah. And so, or longer, I would imagine it would have been longer, because I think we were told 70 years in the second episode. But again, that doesn't make sense unless they're trying to say the time between the first age and the second age was only 70 years. But we get this dialogue before this orc comes up of the captain telling them that, one of us needs to escape, And if we do, we can come back in full force and we can sweep these orcs from the land like salt from the table. What? Oh, brother.
They're trying. They're trying. Okay, so before we get into this next scene,
yeah,
we're gonna go back to character development and payoff, because this is a massive example of how you don't do it. We have gotten roughly between these two characters. It's gonna pertain more to homie on the right here than it is the captain. Whose names I don't know, by the way, and that should indicate why this is partially a problem.
Well, it's it's Elf Goofy, and then
yeah, he's the goofy
Captain
one.
Serious.
And what's really funny is that he was all goofy before, and you would think that he would still be like trying to make snarky jokes in this situation because it would be part of his character. He's the snarky one,
trying to lighten the
he
terrible.
He doesn't at all. He's he's completely like just this face the whole time. Anyway, so with the scene that's about to happen, what you would want to make this work properly, and we'll get into it, but what you would want to make this work properly is to be able to spend time with these three characters, getting to know them for this specific part of the show to work properly with what would be considered like a payoff, which doesn't necessarily mean a good thing. It just means that you've completed an arc for a character, whether that's a secondary character or a primary character. You would want to know how much that he cares about both of these people. They've been together for roughly 70 years.
Or longer.
Oh, well, yeah, you're right. They would have been together longer, but they've been in this area, we're being told, for that amount of time working together. And I know, again, we're going back to, it's like you got the elf, the thing with, it's in a blink of an eye or whatever. But you should, at least for the sake of the audience, you need to develop their relationship for the scene to work.
Learn to care about them.
Yes, because, and it's really stupid because, so the orc comes out and offers them water because of their defiance, and they just go for it.
Yeah. Like,
oh,
you could
thanks,
tell
man.
they're hesitant, they're slightly distrusting, but the elves wouldn't trust them at all.
Yeah, it'd be like, no.
It's not.
So he drinks it.
They're trying to say the elves are in a desperate situation. They're thirsty. They haven't been given any water, so
But the elves are supposed to be able to swim across massive bodies of water without having any kind of
no, David.
Rest
Only Galadriel can, because she's a strong woman, David.
Gotcha.
Jeez. Get with 2022, David.
Honestly, one thing that I'm curious about. Well, I guess that I kind of I like that this helmet looks like that, like it got stolen.
They stapled it together.
Yeah,
I will say it hasn't so far. One of our criticisms of the trailers is that they came across clean, right? Like Disney. Has it so far into episode 3? Does it still seem that way to you?
In some instances, maybe, but it's not something that's been in my face like it has been in something like Halo.
Yes.
Where everything in Halo looked just way too shiny. Because this is obviously very aged. It kind of looks like one of the elf helmets from that battle, which I guess they left all those helmets there for people to just take. Goodness.
And I like how it seems like the helmet was cracked, and so they put it back together with metal.
Actually, is it one? I would have to go back and actually look at the design of those other helmets, but it looks similar.
It's similar.
So they do this whole thing, and it's obviously just to trick the one guy, and why he's the one they decided to kill. Clearly,
it's just a trick, but the elves are all stupid, apparently.
Dude, I don't understand why they're all so dumb in this show.
Even Arondir, I don't think I got to cover that, but why would Arondir, he sees the destruction of the city, goes into it with Bronwyn, goes into the house from The Witcher that the demon lady appeared in, and and sees the hole and says, no, I'm not going to go warn my full army or team, maybe we don't know if it's a full army, of elves. I'm just going to hop in this by myself.
Yeah.
Who am I going to run into? Is it going to be an entire army of orcs that I'm suspecting? Who knows?
That goes back to that point I was making before, where if that had been the case, and then they had a big fight with the orcs and got outnumbered or whatever, and you give some sort of explanation as to why they got captured, and then the three of them got captured together, you could have spent at least an extra episode building the relationship between the three of them
Mm-hmm.
before this guy gets killed. And what's so crazy about this is that they play this off as if any of us give a crap that they killed the goofy guy.
Yeah, and that's what one of the points I was making about the musical score is that it's good.
He's
It's
dead.
good in this show, but the reason why it's not great or better or what it needs to be is it feels disjointed from what we're seeing in the story.
It's not used properly.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the music's trying to uplift these scenes, right? But the scenes aren't there.
Yeah, it's playing this really sad music as if this is similar to how Boromir dies in Fellowship. Someone that you spend 2 hours. Well, okay, so not roughly. He's only in it for a little over an hour. So that actually makes it even worse because we got an hour of Boromir before they kill him off,
if not longer.
Yeah, it's way more impactful than this. Yeah. So this happens. Dude. It was so goofy, and it's like, oh no, and I kept going like, I'm not even sure if I've seen this character before.
Yeah.
And because I didn't look up to make sure it was the same goofy guy until after I'd watched the episode. But it's like, oh, and there's no connection here. And this is a problem that we've seen with a lot of modern writing where it's like, guys, you're telling me I should have a connection to this and I should feel sad based on the music and what's happening, but I don't because I don't know who this is.
Let's use an opposite example. Arcane, right? You have Vi's father and her, adopted brothers or whoever, best friends, right?
They're all adopted.
Yeah. And so, you spend the first 2 episodes with them, getting to know them. You spend most of the 3rd episode still with them. And then at the end of the episode, they get killed. And it's impactful because you've gotten to see Vi's relationship with them. The audience have gotten to move along with them and engage with the characters. Yeah. So then when the 3rd episode happens, you're like, oh, shoot.
Oh,
like,
it's
that sucks. I wanted to see more of their relationship, but now that's cut off from the audience, not just from Vi. You get what I'm saying? Like, they leave you wanting more from those characters. And
Vander, by the way, is his name.
Vander. And then there's what's the other? The Clanker, and then I can't remember the other dude.
It's been a while, I know.
But you have like Game of Thrones in the first season with Ned Stark. You spend the entire season with him, and at the end, when he gets his head chopped off,
everyone's like, oh wait, I thought he was the main character. It's different examples of how you make death impactful, how you do payoffs for characters.
Or Boromir is a great example.
Boromir is a great example too. Yeah,
you see that he wants what's best for his people, and that's why he wants to use the ring. But
they set up how much he cares about Merry and Pippin specifically. He spends a lot of time with them, and it's not like Gandalf goes, "Oh wow, Boromir, you sure do love Merry and Pippin." Right? It just that it's part of
you get to see
scenes.
that.
Yeah.
He knows that these hobbits, all of them need, even Frodo, he cares about Frodo and Sam, and he knows that they need to all learn, but specifically Merry and Pippin need to learn how to defend themselves because they're going to come into battle. And so you see this, you get to see all these great qualities about him, and then you get this bad scene of him with Frodo. But then you get the remorseful scene after that, and then he redeems himself, and it becomes impactful for the audience.
Yep. So
this just doesn't happen at all.
No,
I do like the idea of him caring for the tree. That's very Tolkienian, but again, I just think they threw that in. It's just like, just give the nerds some tree stuff. You know that they're gonna. That's exactly what it is, because it doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't feel genuine at all. Especially like he gets up there, and it's like all the other trees are just like gone. It's like, all right. Oh, bro, I do enjoy the idea of
he should have just run
the land. The land. Well, he's still tied up at this point.
Oh, that's right.
The idea of the land being poisoned by the orcs. You're starting to see Mordor take its shape. I think that's a good route. Again, I still think all of this is poorly done, but I think that's a good idea. We have good ideas in a bad show.
Yeah, they're sprinkled.
That better writers could have done more with.
They're sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
So he's gonna, on his own, cut down with that axe this massive tree. It's like, all right, man.
And that's, by the way, that's CGI for that.
Oh, dude.
Destruction of Mordor is bad. And what did I put?
Yeah.
Oh, somehow the orcs created a huge amount of destruction, and the elves watching over their land missed it.
Yeah. They've been here for a long time, and somehow they missed
Clearly,
this.
they've been here for a long time doing this. Like, this isn't the starting point. You know what I mean?
And like, they're supposed to be underground, right? Why did they waste the time to make this massive like cloth trail when they were digging underground in other places? Like, why wouldn't the whole thing just be underground? Because this is obvious, right? Oh, man.
Man, great storytelling there, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. Galadriel is sneaking out, which, whatever.
Sneaks out right behind the soldier.
Yeah.
He never turns around.
I'll give it credit only because elves are established to be like light on their feet, and they, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. It's not great, but so they Arondir and her. Sorry, there are so many people in this.
Yeah,
I'm having a hard. Elendil, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm having a
hard time keeping up with all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I was gonna say you get this scene to where he's like, "Ha, caught you sneaking off," and she says, "Well, how would you feel if I murdered you in broad daylight for saving my life?" It's just dumb. Like, why are they characterizing Galadriel like this? Well, you can't. Essentially, what he's saying, he says to her, "Well, what if I call out to my guard?" And she said, "Well, what if you can't?" And he says, "Suppose I do, you'll still end up back in chains." And it's like, this Galadriel wouldn't do this. Not even in the First Age. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's ways to display pride that's not like this, but you create the art of what you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so this is the only way they can characterize being prideful. There's many forms of pride and many ways to capture the essence of it within a character that goes beyond just being brash, arrogant, I'm going to kill everyone. Why would Galadriel just randomly murder someone that saved her?
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And this is the part that I've been waiting to get to. So the show, I'm getting the feeling that
Peter Jackson vibe.
Well, yes, and then they're taking stuff from like Peter Jackson, because they do this with the fireworks in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I forgot to mention that the elves didn't have fireworks.
Well, yeah, not only that, right? But they were like, well, the Fellowship had fireworks, so we have to have fireworks, but we need to have lots more fireworks, right? Yeah. So they're taking something that was from that, and then they're just like, well, we have to find a way to like up that.
Yeah.
So you have these like sweeping scenes. I know there's like people who hate the establishment of, oh look, the Fellowship's walking again. Like, we have these sweeping shots of them walking across. For one,
I enjoy them personally.
I don't mind it at all. I appreciate that they're like showing, hey, like they're on a journey. Like, this is they're establishing shots. That's the point of them. Yep. I understand they've gotten overused at this point because Lord of the Rings did it and everyone went, oh, that's a great way to do that. So now everyone does that to show the passing of time and all that. Whatever, man. They're there.
I think I personally don't hate it. No. For me, it works because you're getting to see, one of the things with Tolkien is he very much cared about nature. And so you're getting to see his world and experience the world as these characters are going. And one of my other criticisms of episode 1 and 2 is you don't get that at all. You're not on a journey with them. It's like, hey, we're going to go from Aragon to Khazad-dûm, and you don't get to see any of it.
Yep. Okay, so this is the part, though, that on a technical level is really cool, like the cameras that they have to use to get these kind of slow motion shots, especially at this quality. But
this scene bugged me because we didn't get to see this horse stomp back down on the ground, so you could see the water kind of separate from the sand. But like, it's kind of like, for me, it was one of those scenes, with the old DVD thing on the monitors or whatnot, and you have that scene in The Office where it's bouncing around and finally it hits the edge of the corner.
Yeah. And
everyone goes wild. Yeah.
So
that's what this scene was for me.
What's interesting, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but what's interesting about the type of cameras that they have to use to do this stuff is that these are the only kind of shots that you can get. Like, you can't get wide shots of slow motion like this because it takes a lot of power, and so you would lose a lot of quality in the shots. So you have these like, this is awful. Like, why would you? I mean, now to be fair, I am zoomed in a little bit, so you can't see like the entire thing. But yeah, you get these like, it looks nice. Not some of it, like when we get to her face, but like this, like the little like slow motion of her dress like flowing or whatever. Just from an aesthetic standpoint, it's not.
It looks nice.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. It's cool technology.
Yeah,
and people don't seem to understand that when I talk about this. They're like, yeah, but the show sucks. And I'm like, I'm not talking about the quality of the show. I'm saying like on a technical level, when you're talking about cameras being used and the things that they're doing. It's like, I like this stuff. It's one of the reasons I like the Dune movie so much, is because they do a lot of really interesting things with color, and it has nothing to do with the story. It's like, we talk about that plenty. Like, let me soak in the few little things that I'm like, oh yeah, like great.
Can't have a nuanced discussion about anything these days. You have to, with everything, extremely hate all of it or none of it. Yeah, and I think the first shot of Galadriel's face. See, I thought the first shot of Galadriel's face was a bad choice from the director. It should have done it a different way. This shot, less so, but it still feels awkward because she hasn't smiled up to this point, and we don't really. Oh, so Galadriel likes riding a horse? Why?
Yeah, like, why is it all of a sudden she's like super into this? And I think it's supposed to be like, oh, it's her freedom. She's finally free. This is just rough, man. I don't know.
It's just weird. It was weird. It was weird. Bad angles, too. Oh, man. Now we get him got not Sauron or not the Witch King or as just some guy called him. What was it that he called him? I saw, I think, on Twitter was Discount Aragorn.
Discount Aragorn. And it was so funny.
Cracked me up.
He called him that before we got the scene later on where you basically go like, oh, they are just making him Discount Aragorn. They're trying to think. Like, it's you're supposed to be of a kingly line, but the
reluctant king.
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
Oh man, so yeah, we get the scene of Halbrand trying to craft, right? Be a blacksmith.
Yeah.
So woman knows.
Oh, whoops, sorry. I think I need to.
And we get this, next scene.
Well, hang on. Let's talk about the Halbrand thing for a second.
Okay.
Because he mentions this guy's like, well, you have to be like a guild master and to be able to get like the crest or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he's clearly interested. And he's like, I was a craftsman. And the guy just doesn't even like, he doesn't do anything where he's like, well, you're an outsider, or he's just like, well, you can't, or like, you have to have this crest. And it's like, you're not going to give him information about how he could get that done?
Yeah. This is what you have to do. This is the journey you have to go on to overcome this.
Yeah, they could have done that. They could have given it, like, focused that part of the episode on him being like, oh, sorry, I need to catch back up. Being like, you could, okay, well, like, let's put you to the test. Let's see what you could do. You could have done a nice montage and been like, all right, here you go. Like, You've proved it, and then you get the establishment that Halbrand knows what he's doing. They're not just telling you that he's a good blacksmith. You're actually getting to see that he knows what he's doing.
But David is, we're only on episode 3, and he just got introduced in the last episode. There's going to be more in the season, David.
Oh, there's going to be 50 episodes. Wait to hold your opinions until the entire show is over.
Oh man, but yeah, so then we get the scene of the Numenorians coming up to him, and you get this panning shot to him, the zooming shot to him, and this eerie music that he's gonna lose it, and he snaps out of it, and he manipulates them and buys them all drinks to make them happy, so he can try and steal the guild crest that he needs.
And it sucks that later on too that they go ahead and show how violent he can be or whatever.
Yeah.
And I say that only because, I would like some more build up. Like we know there's something weird about him. We know that he's not quite right. You establish that with that scene, that zoom in, that okay, maybe he's got some issues. We find out later that he's part of royalty, so he's probably had training in some way. Mm-hmm. I mean, that you can probably assume that. Relatively easy. So he steals the crest.
The problem with the show is that it's a paradox in the sense that it moves too fast and too slow.
It's weird, right? They're jumping around to things they think are important without being able to slow down, establish characters,
let them breathe.
Yeah, focus
set
on
it
the
up.
details.
Yeah.
And this is why, at least so far with House of the Dragon, the show just outshines it, because it's the little things like we've talked about in those reviews where like Viserys is slowly losing fingers, right? Like we know that there's something wrong. It seems like maybe the throne is hurting him in some way, or it's like that. We've got a lot of time to develop characters, and characters are acting in a way because we've gotten to see who they are and how they interact. That when they decide to make decisions like Daemon does at the end of the last episode, it makes sense because we understand the type of character that he is.
Yeah, where he just disregards what his brother says and goes to go kill the Mr. Krabs himself.
Yeah. So, he does this whole thing where he's like trying to butter up to them, and he steals the thing again. This at least they show it in this, right?
Yeah. In a crafty way too.
And in some sort of way that's like, oh, okay, that was pretty slick. But there's a couple questions that have to be answered. First of all, let's say this next scene didn't occur. How is he going to get away with this? Like, he's just going to show up like, oh, I got this. Like that guild master guy wasn't going to know that he didn't do what he needed to get it.
Because you didn't tell the audience on how he can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How he can get the crest. So.
Yeah. And so, they come in, you're like, uh-oh. He's trying to give it back to them, and then we just get this fight scene. I didn't really like.
I didn't think it was all that great.
Yeah,
personally,
it didn't. And they go like super violent with it. It was just like, dang, man, like. I guess these guys, some of them are dead. Like that guy's got to be dead. And
something, man.
You're like, okay, so they put him in jail for this or whatever, but I don't know, man. Like, this doesn't seem like the kind of reaction that the Numenorians would have to this guy, like brutalizing some of their
citizens.
Yeah, especially like the people who are making weapons and stuff for him. Like those guys are at least in some sort of semi-upper class group in this city. Like they have an important role, and then they're just like, oh, we'll just throw you in jail. Like we're not gonna like. Well, who knows? They might be like, well, now we're gonna. No, I guess they would have established that in that because Galadriel sees him later on.
Yeah.
But you would think they'd been like, well, we're gonna execute you for this.
Yeah. Right. So this is where Galadriel learns about the mark.
Yeah.
Oh, not only that, but how the old king is still around. But he's just in a tower somewhere.
Yeah. He's in a tower, and you're like, are we gonna see him? Is he in the tower you're currently in? Like,
I thought when they said that, I got confused for a minute because when they said that historian or library lore keeper, whatever you want to call it, walks in, I'm like, oh, are they referring to the tower that this is in, or no? That's a separate tower. Okay.
Yeah, one of the many towers back in the city. So there's not really a whole lot that goes on here other than she. Conveniently, this just happens to be the most convenient thing where like a prisoner. What was the other show that did this? Was it Halo? Where it's like this prisoner conveniently got away from the enemy.
Yes.
And was able to give us like it's similar, I think. There might have been another show that did it too, but I don't know why they keep doing this. Anyway. It turns out I can't remember exactly how they like she figures it out in the scene other than she just takes the sigil or like the mark and turns it and goes, oh, is this a location on a map? And you're like, you spent over 200 years and it never crossed your mind. Like you had scholars, like your elven scholars look at this and you never said, hey, this could be on a map, or hey, maybe there's like other groups of people and we need to stop being so mean to the Numenorians, or like, our scholars can't figure it out. Let's see if there's other groups of people that might have an idea of what the sigil is. And I understand like the elves are supposed to be kind of seen as like really prideful, and they're also just coming off really stupid all the time. And this is just another example of it.
And you can intermingle those two things, right? You get that with Thranduil and the Hobbit. Like he doesn't come off as stupid, but he's very prideful when speaking to the dwarves and stuff like that in his own position, but he's not coming across as an idiot either.
Yeah.
And there's redeeming qualities about him that people like.
And like I was saying in our last review, it's she knew that it was the mark of Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
She knew that it was leading the orcs somewhere, but she could not put together that place was that was the Southlands, that was on the map.
Yeah.
And you're like, like how? Who's
a couple thousand years old.
Yeah.
Or a few centuries, however they're doing it.
Yeah, I really don't. I mean, I feel vindicated, don't get me wrong, because I was 100% right about that. That it didn't make sense that she was able to spend all this time searching for him and somehow like knew where to go, and she's got her maps with her that she's pointing her dagger at to figure out the location for whatever reason. But she can't figure out to turn it on its side, and it's like, well, those could be like mountains, and maybe, and then it's like, hey, we know a lot about maps. We've been all over Middle Earth for centuries trying to find Sauron. It's like there was no indicators. This is what I'm talking about, guys. Like there would have, and then like you have these other elves right down in the Southlands, and this stuff is going on, and no one's and they're getting communication from the High King.
Yep.
And no one's going, hey, this is sort of weird, this is going on down here. And then, like, no one gets that information to Galadriel to be like, hey, there's orcs here. Like, there's weird stuff going on down here. Like, everyone has to be dumb. All these elves have to be dumb and unaware of what's going on around them in order for them to progress this forward.
Yep.
That's all I got to say.
And that's the mischaracterization that they have.
It's so dumb.
Oh, have we gotten to the... We haven't gotten to the warg yet, have we?
No. That's coming up. That's coming up. Okay. Oh, yeah. The Chihuahua.
Yeah. Oh.
Dude, wait. I didn't realize the Harfoot stuff was really close to the end of this episode. Can we just skip the Harfoot stuff? Do you have anything in particular you really want to...
Yeah, I wanted to say this. First off, Poppy talks about how not Gandalf killed the fireflies, but it's okay for the hobbits to kill snails.
It's okay for them to kill snails and leave their people behind.
Yeah, and leave their people behind. And then, that's really all I have. Oh, and then the other thing was how her Nori's father broke his foot.
Yeah.
And they're like, but we don't know what we're going to do, even though the scene before you get them having not Gandalf on the cart.
Here's that painting, by the way, that we were talking about earlier. I wanted to make sure that we mentioned this. Dude, this looks so bad. This does not look like something they would hang. Bro.
Oh, man.
All
but
right.
Yeah, no, we can skip the Hobbit scene. I just want to say the Hobbits, they like bad design again. Got freaking trees and,
This reminded me of some sort of weird commercial they were trying to film.
Yeah.
It's
just they all look stupid. Like the hobbits weren't stupid,
Yeah, this is like for some sort of like venereal disease. They're like, are you living with hepatitis? Or like, you know what I mean? And it's all these people having fun. It's like, get this drug now.
The other thing too that I find funny is, they're saying that obviously the Harfoots were a nomadic tribe.
Yes.
Nomadic tribes, again, it goes back to the idea of Tolkien. He was very much into writing things as a history so that when you read it, it felt real. Yeah. So we would talk to geologists, geographers, archaeologists, historians, all that stuff, right? So one of the things with nomadic tribes is that they, are very reluctant to outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you just have all the Harfoots be black or Asian or Hispanic or white or whatnot? Why intermingle it? Because it doesn't make sense if they're a traveling group, yet you get what I'm saying? They're nomadic tribes. Nomadic tribes are known historically for being opposed to outsiders and not intermingling.
Yeah, the diversity is in it, and they don't have an explanation for that. But to be fair,
they at least do it in a way that's plausible.
Yeah, they don't have an explanation for anything in this show.
That's more so what I'm saying. It's kind of like with the elves. Well, why not have one group be white, another group be black, another group be, this depend. You could do the group of elves in Rune as Asian, and so on and so forth. It just
the Harfoot thing bothers me too because they keep talking about how female Frodo, how they're Brandyfoots, but this group is called Harfoots, which doesn't make sense. So like you know how like when they were talking about how Tolkien said that some of the was it the Harfoots that were a darker shade.
The Harfoots were browner of skin.
Browner of skin.
Yeah.
So they use that, right, as an example of like, oh, well, this is why we decided to do that. But they completely mess up sort of like the lineage of the hobbits by doing that. Because it's like, as a group, they're the Harfoots. But then the Brandyfoots are a part of the Harfoots. And it's like, but that's not how Tolkien wrote that. So it's like, you're nitpicking things out, which is a correct way of how you use the word nitpicking, by the way, people. It's not when you're getting nuanced and detailed about things. It's when you decide to take certain things and use those as examples, or like get into stupid details about like
and take it out of context. Like Galadriel was prideful in her youth and stuff.
Right. Anyway, so all of that to be said, yeah, they will take something and go, well, we're going to use this for our own means, but we're going to ignore other things because that doesn't work for what we're trying to do.
I'm glad you said that because I got it right here. Do you mind if I interject here?
Oh,
just
go.
All right, so this is what it said. So about Galadriel, what I was trying to say. She was proud, strong, and self-willed. Right? That's what they use. Okay, let's put it in context, okay? Galadriel was born in the bliss of Valinor, but it was not long in the reckoning of the Blessed Realm before that was dimmed. So on and so forth, for in that testing time amid the strife of the Nodor, she was drawn this way and that. She was proud, strong, and self-willed, as were all the descendants of Finwë, save Finarfin. And like her brother Finrod and all of her kin, the nearest to her heart, she had dreams of far lands and dominions that might be her own to order as she would without tutelage. Yet deeper still, this is the point, yet deeper still, there dwelt in her the noble and generous spirit of the Vanyar, and a reverence for the Valar that she could not forget. From her earliest years, she had a marvelous gift of insight into the minds of others, but judged them with mercy and understanding, and she withheld her goodwill from none save only Feanor. In him she perceived the darkness that she hated and feared, though she did not perceive the shadow of the same evil had fallen upon the minds of all the Nodor and upon her own. So you see, you get this sense of they're going to pick this out of the context and twist it and manipulate it.
Yep.
That's what we're saying. And again, still, like, even with that, though, it goes back to, you know, they're showing us, well, we want to have diversity, and they're showing black, white, Asian, you know, Indian, other Harfoots there. And it's like, guys, just, if you're going to do it, just commit to it. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. And make it plausible. But, you know.
Can't say that, though.
Nah.
Can't be reasonable.
It's just like with here's the thing. I think we were talking about this earlier this week, privately, not on anything on the podcast or anything, but just talking on the phone. And we talked about George R.R. Martin regarding the House of the Dragon, how they Lord Corlys, and how he said he worked with the show and, you know, changed it but made it in a way, you know, that made sense, at least for the show. Maybe it doesn't make sense.
Plausible.
Yeah, maybe the plot, it doesn't work regarding, you know, Game of Thrones and Jon and Daenerys, but it's more plausible, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, at least like him being the Valerians potentially going to an island and intermingling with the people on that specific island could have led to Corlys being black.
Right.
It's like they took the time to at least like kind of put some detail and establishment in it, which is, again, something we've been complimenting House of the Dragon for. And of course, my biggest criticism of that is that the show, I think it was just one of the showrunners for House of the Dragon, was constantly saying like, well, I was just tired of seeing too many white people in my show. And then we're just going like, dude, Corlys is there, but so far in the first few episodes, he hasn't been front and center in the plot. And so you've got all these other characters going on. I'm like, I'm so confused by you say these things. And this seems to be the case with that show in particular. There were a lot of things that were said by specifically
what's his name?
Yeah, the showrunner who left. All of the stuff that falls into his like ideological bent. But then when you watch the show, you're like, I don't think that's what's actually going on, which is actually, it's pretty common among like Hollywood types. It's like in interviews, they'll do that whole thing. It's sort of the way that like they put Disa front and center, or the actress who plays her, and she's been in like 2 minutes of the show.
Yeah, and not using her at all. And that's one of the criticisms that we've had, is that it doesn't come across as genuine.
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense, because you already have African culture and Asian culture represented within Middle Earth, just not in the ways that they wanted it.
Sure.
They're already represented in the Far East. And so you could have easily, as we said, crafted a storyline. Okay, maybe you do Harad, and okay, well, maybe Gondor, because we understand in the Third Age that Gondor is corrupted to some extent with, Denethor and stuff like that. And so maybe they haven't always acted the best, right? If you're just going from a movie perspective. We also understand that in the books too. Okay, so well, maybe in the Second Age you craft this narrative to where maybe Gondor screwed over Harad, and so that's what led to the Haradrim allying with Sauron. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And maybe Sauron manipulated that to his benefit. And so you also show the Haradrim from two sympathetic points of view.
Yeah.
Gondor and Sauron. And so, but again, that subtlety and that nuance and that, writing isn't there. It's just, no, let's just have, let's just change the races of the Harfoots and the Dwarves and the Elf. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then even within that, even still going down that route, point earlier, if you're going to do it, at least commit to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just comes across as disingenuous. And the reason why it gets criticized is because if I'm watching, The Last Airbender, that was the source material was the, Asian people, and you put white people as the good guy cast, right? Whitewashing it, as we've criticized before. It just, even though it's fictional, it's still based on something. And with here, one of the things, they've been saying, Lenny Henry in particular, is that, and other people on TikTok too, it's a fictional world. It's a fictional world. And exactly. So why does it have to look like our world? It doesn't. You can leave, if I'm watching, reading a story of, what the folklore of the Zulu tribe in Africa, right? You don't have to have white people in that story. Yeah. It's perfectly fine. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And it always just makes it more interesting that no one's really been, I mean, I know they have that like Woman King movie coming out or whatever, but it is really interesting that there's not a lot of attempt to put a big budget production behind that stuff. Like to tell these kind of stories from different ethnic backgrounds. And there's some of it out there. You have like Coco, which I thought was good.
Yeah. Isn't that the Disney movie?
Yeah. It's about like the Day of the Dead, and he has to like, yeah. So that stuff exists, and the thing is that it's so full of like life and color, and no one was coming out being like, there's too many Mexicans in this movie or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's so disingenuous all the time, and it's why we say a lot of the time that people are looking at these things in like these bubbles, as if other franchises, or that like women have never been the main characters in television shows before that men have liked, or that like their words, not mine, that like POCs have been are finally getting like representation. And I'm like, y'all, it's been there. It's always been there. And then like, why are you getting mad at like fans for being annoyed that they're taking a work of fiction and they're bastardizing it basically, rather than going after Hollywood? And I say this all the time, and people still like fight for Hollywood's side on this. It's like, Hollywood's the one that
has done all these terrible things.
The reason that you're saying, it's not because people wouldn't go see those things. Plenty of people have gone to see movies, since the 80s, 90s, or whatever, with people that didn't look like them, and they've loved those movies. But like all of a sudden, this is a thing now, and it's like I don't really understand where they're getting the logic from, other than the fact that they're just trying to slay dragons that don't exist.
Yeah.
Or
hunt for ghosts that don't exist.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so interesting because it's like, someone actually mentioned this, and that's why I had mentioned it in one of the comments on like TikTok or whatever at some point, where it was like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is an awesome show. Now the first season's a little rough, but you can't talk about the show anymore because Joss Whedon's the one who like created it. She's an awesome character. The cast is roughly 50-50 male female. And people have some complaints about the way that they like kill certain characters off towards the end of the show, which, it's whatever. It's discussion that can be had. But they do a really great job with characters who are like likable, who make mistakes, who go down a bad path for, and then are redeemed from that, but not without like consequences potentially. And there's all sorts of stuff in there. And it's like, you just don't really have two legs to stand on. So every time you're like, well, you don't like this because it's female-led or because they're trying to make it diverse, it's like they're doing that. It's like we talked about with that Abba and Preach thing on our podcast, where it's like Hollywood's diversity is fake. It's fake. And it's like, and if you don't want to listen to us because of the color of our skin, like, I'll send you the clip, or I'll send you that video from Abba and Preach. Like, diversity in these industries that are trying to push it so hard, it is fake. They are doing it because they want money from people and they think this is the best way to get it done.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm done with the soapbox.
No.
I'm tired of talking.
You're good.
I'm so tired of talking about it.
I know.
All right. I don't really have. I just was leaving it on this shot for obvious reasons.
This is a scene where Lindell is talking to both Isildur and his daughter, we eventually find out got her apprenticeship to.
She got into college.
got into the guild, I think it was, to be
Numenor College.
Yeah, and then we find out the trope of Isildur of, Dad, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to go into the family business. I want to go down my own path.
Yeah.
And I think the only way to save this show is in season 2. Galadriel wakes up from a bad dream. Oh, it was just a nightmare.
Yeah, there's not much here, to be honest. I think the only other thing, we get to see them talking to each other. I don't even remember. Oh, this is where you find out he's basically Aragorn.
Yeah, not discount Aragorn. Yeah. I'm gonna take that from just some guy.
So funny, dude. And she like wants him to like step up or whatever. And this is the thing: is like
become the king for his people.
Yeah, which is potentially another check mark on the fact that he's potentially just Sauron, and that all of this is fake, and that he's been manipulating people.
Being used by Sauron.
True. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It could be that they're all red herrings and Sauron still hasn't been introduced yet.
Yeah.
It's very possible. All right, so let's get to this elf fight. I don't.
We get the scene of Tarmiriel and telling her father that what we have feared is here, and the prophecy or whatnot.
Yeah,
it's like another thing. Good night, Isildur, Tar. Who else? Theo. Freaking! I'm sure I'm missing some more prophecies and mystery boxes.
Gandalf. Gandalf, not Gandalf, or not Gandalf.
Yeah.
This is the shot in particular where look at this. This looks like Gandalf, dude.
It does.
He helps them. He becomes their friend so that they don't get left behind. Which again, someone I saw pointed out. They hate. Yeah, they're psychopaths. It's like you're a nomadic tribe. Every member should be really important, and then they're just like they're like, we will remember you as you're left to die alone in the wilderness. And it's like you have carts. You're telling me you couldn't put one dude with a messed up foot in a cart and have people pull him?
Yeah,
he must not be that important to them.
Nope.
If that's the case. Excuse me. So that's pretty much it. Again, the Harfoot stuff has been pointless. I don't know what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it does. And regarding the Harfoot scene, my last comment on that I had written down is there's no further movement with the Fireflies, and that was kind of important to the second episode, and the Fireflies and the stars. Except that the only way the plot moved forward regarding the Harfoots is now Gandalf's not in hiding.
I also thought it was funny that this comet comes flying out of the sky and crashes in Middle-earth, and no one went to go investigate besides her.
No one else, even though
no one else is around where they are. Yeah, all these people saw that comet fly through. 2 hobbits are the only people that actually were in that area. No one came around, like sneaking around, and maybe they needed to move faster to get out of that area because of the comet coming down. I mean, these little things that help push your plot forward and give a little tension to it, even if it's just like a plot line that doesn't seem to really be going anywhere right now.
Yeah.
They just don't care, man.
Now we get this scene. Is this a scene where Rondir does the twig? Yeah.
Dude,
Okay.
this part is, I cracked up so
I was dying,
much.
dude.
So, yeah, let's see. Hang on, let me do this.
Rondir is the only one in the show that actually acts like an elf, though.
Yeah,
The only one.
Yeah. So, yeah, he like whips the chain. Like what's really funny is all these other people are still working while he's doing this. Like no one stops to like look to see what's going on. Like he's whipping this chain, and this guy right here is still just digging.
Is he? I thought he was trying to like cut off his chain or something.
Well, but what's this guy doing? I didn't think that happened until after.
Maybe
this
you're
moment.
right. Yeah, maybe you're right.
Because all the chains are still.
Yep.
I can't tell. Maybe he is, but it looks like he's just hitting a stick into the ground.
Yeah, I think so.
I can't tell. You know, someone might be able to tell us. But yeah, look, like right here, I don't know what he's doing. He's got a stick, and he's just hitting it into the ground. Let me see if I can slow this down a little bit more. All right. So this is the beginning of the scene. What's he doing? So this guy's going to attack.
Yeah.
He uses that guy to whip.
Maybe that's what he's just there for. Is
the
to post
guy
up
is
the hell.
Literally there to post up. But I don't. Was this planned?
All right, now like keep going through the scene and let's see.
So he
do
whips
anything
him.
else? Yeah.
Arondir realizes what's going on. He whips him.
The guy's still going.
Is this the same guy?
Yeah, I have no idea. I think so.
How does that
I'm not sure.
How does that make any sense? Hang on. I'm sorry, y'all. Yeah, it has to be. Wait.
Yeah, it has to be.
No, maybe it's this guy. The one that's like really blurred out back here. I'm sorry, guys. This stuff fascinates me though. How they put this together. So he whips him. I can't tell what any of them are doing. It kind of looks like they're just hitting sticks into the ground.
Yeah, I think they're.
Dude, do you remember
trying to get their chains off? Did
I show you the scene from Book of Boba Fett where there are sand people randomly raking the sand for no reason?
Oh yeah.
That's what this reminds me of. They're like, hey, just pretend like you're doing something at back, hit the stick into the ground. Like that was the direction that they were given. Here, I need to speed this back up. I don't want us to get copyright.
And then
they're all, so
they're fighting
they fight him back. He's mastered his chains. Okay. Why would this be the way that you tried to break? Wouldn't that make it stronger? I don't know. I could be totally wrong about this.
You would think, though.
But I would think
him upon himself.
If you stack the chains together like that, it's going to make it harder to break through them.
Yeah, I would think so.
He's hitting it with something. Oh, the axe or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, whatever. We can move past that. So here come all the orcs.
Time for tug of war.
This part is so funny.
Oh.
That guy just run. Why did he run away? Why did he run and not help everyone escape?
Yeah.
It seemed like the worst move. Like, did they not plan? I guess they didn't plan. This was just
everyone for themselves.
Yeah, great captain, this guy.
Clearly, now we understand when they got caught.
And they're both just looking at him. No one goes, no, wait, don't do that at the very least. So he's dead. This guy gets dragged in. I thought that was pretty funny. Here comes elf orc tug of war for whatever reason. And it's funny, too. They just give up on the chains and start like doing, so goofy, man. And the elves are strong enough here to whip these chains in such a way, in a way that it hits the orcs and knocks them out. Like it's knocking them over and stuff. It's like all of a sudden they've got their power leveled up. Here comes that famous moment from the shot. We see it all the time where he does his thing.
And exposes the sun on them.
Yeah.
The sun burns them in this show, so that's important.
Yep. Yeah, it's much worse for them than they just don't like it.
Now it's really
dude, yeah.
The
they give
hyenas
up.
From Lion King.
These armored, well-armed orcs give up trying to put these people down.
And just say, go for the warg. And apparently the only elves that know how to fight in the show are the main characters.
Yes.
Too.
Is our captain and Arondir. Because this lady, she's like, is she an elf? Can you tell?
Is that Simple Jack's pet?
Yeah. It looks like a chihuahua. I don't know if that lady's an elf. She acts like she knows what she's doing.
She is, yeah.
She acts like she knows what she's doing with this thing, misses completely, and just gets obliterated by the warg, the chihuahua warg.
And then the Asian elf goes at him. I think is next.
Whoever he's an elf too. So all these elves got captured. No wonder they got captured, man. They're terrible
at fighting.
This is borderline the exact same thing that happened in the first episode with Galadriel's team.
Yep.
Surprisingly violent too.
I don't think is.
Oh, we missed the scene. Where was the part where he stabs the orc with the twig? Did we miss that?
No, we haven't missed it yet.
It's coming up. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's another shot.
The Matrix.
He does a weird cartwheel flip thing, and
for
somehow.
Whatever reason.
So this thing. Okay, look at this. This thing somehow, instead of jumping straight forward, it flips and does an awkward jump into there. I don't know. Just found that weird.
Then he uses his chains to
look at this thing, dude.
Lock it up.
I hate the design of that thing. Okay. This part also really cracked me up, right? So instead of going and hitting the warg with the axe in the head while it's chained up, he starts going back for the chains. Instead of going, he has the weapon. No one else is there helping them. He goes for the chains to try to escape instead of killing the warg. It's just like, now here they all come back out. Conveniently, It took them long enough to come back out.
And
oh, here it is. I'm glad we didn't miss this. Okay, so he gets pulled, right, by these two guys. He grabs this twig. Look at this thing. He grabs this twig off of that. Kills an orc with a twig. And the orc goes down.
Dude, I died laughing at that. Then the captain gets free, runs to the top, and the warg is going to chase after him. Then Arondir kills it with the axe or spear or whatnot. Spear. Yeah.
Hang on.
That's CGI too, but
okay, so it was the spear he grabbed.
Yeah. And then captain turns around and goes to run away. Arondir, even though he's still chained, goes up to, for whatever reason. And
I think it's out of hope or whatever. Like he wants to see him get away. If we were to try to give an explanation for it.
And then, obviously there's orcs on the outside.
And we get our Boromir moment.
Yeah.
Another death that has very little meaning to anyone. To it. Yeah, because we saw the captain for even less time than we did the snarky guy.
And then Arondir gets thrown back down. He's almost killed, but someone says, wait, take him to Adar. And then that's when we get the not shot of Adar.
Yeah. Oh, look, another person who might be Sauron.
Yeah.
another red herring. Yeah, it's also really weird. Like, I don't know why they would have kept Arondir alive at this point.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the point of the next episode or the episode after that to find out. Right?
Yeah, so we get this.
But why wouldn't they have already taken him to Adar? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what else is really funny about this? We're pretty sure this is an elf.
Yeah.
You know why?
Why?
Because his silhouette looks like an elf.
Oh, yeah. The ear.
Long hair. You can kind of see a pointy ear right here. The slender face.
Mm-hmm. So, again, the episode's titled Adar. I don't understand why we don't get more of Adar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just...
But yeah, man, that is... I was trying to get back to the...
That is it. Again, the narrative focus doesn't make any sense. I think, one of the problems is, we already know Sauron's active in the Southlands, but Galadriel doesn't. So it would have been better if they would have tied these scenes together better.
It would have been
somehow great. Even if they would have just not shown anything going on in the Southlands, and again, you go from Galadriel's perspective, and then it cuts to this, right? Yeah. Or you have tied with Galadriel, right? You're now in episode 2, maybe you're getting introduced to Arondir and Brawin and that whole thing, and then you just get introduced to them, and you see that they're in the Southlands, right?
Yeah.
And then you get caught up to Galadriel figuring out, oh, Sauron's in the Southlands, and then it cuts to Arondir and Bronwyn again, and that's when they find the ooze and everything, and
Sure.
and what you know what I mean. And it goes from there.
I forgot about the ooze.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've pretty much gone through everything. I mean,
Yeah.
just about any sort of extra planning and making this show make more sense would have been great.
Yeah. Right.
But
Man.
I can't.
Another bad episode.
I can't believe this thing costs as much as it does.
Let me ask you this. This is what we can end off on. Positive note. What episode do you like the best so far?
Maybe this one only because it was funny. Like I kept laughing at stuff, and so they're all
bad.
Yeah,
and boring.
I don't know. I can't of the badness. Maybe I find this one so far to be the least bad, but like that's not getting it anywhere. It's just if I'm
a tiny turd compared to a big
I'm forced
turd.
to choose.
It's like, would you rather pick up dog crap? No, I don't want to pick up any dog crap. But if you had to choose, I'd rather pick up a small portion of it than a large portion of it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's the comparison we're making. This is more of a smaller version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and well, on a bright note too. One of the things I think we're going to plan to do at some point, we may have to wait till this show is over just so we actually have the time. But we'll do a live stream and we'll go through a lot of the comments that we've gotten about this stuff, good and bad, and just see what we can like try to flesh out through that.
Yeah.
Because this whole idea that there's some sort of very specific way that you're supposed to review content is weird to me.
Yeah.
I have personal things and standards that I use. But like we got comments about how like you can't review a TV show and compare it to a movie, and I'm just like, well, why not? Like why can't you do that?
Why are you criticizing it's only 2 episodes in, even though it's been 2 hours, which is the full length of a film, and a quarter of the way through the first season?
Which has been another one where it's like it's only been 2 episodes. And this is what we talked about this, and I'm sure it's in past videos and on the podcast, but this moving of the bar for when you're allowed to speak critically about this in particular. And it's so it's like, all right, we think this looks bad. Well, it's only trailers. Wait till the show actually comes out. Well, it's only been 2 episodes. Or you have some people who are like, well, it's going to be 50. So it's like you want us to wait potentially.
It's only the first season.
5 to 10 years.
Everyone knows it doesn't get good until the third season.
Who put that out? Do you remember?
I can't remember.
Rings of Power. Was it not Rings of Power? The Fellowship of the Ring, or
I have no idea. I can't.
Not Nerd of the Rings. One of those like Twitter accounts. Yeah, put out that it's
said
like
something.
The third season's when stuff gets good, and I'm like, bruh, what? I don't understand. And this is what we're talking about. It's like everyone has. So like one of the things about criticism and the things that we do is like, if you don't like the way we do it, just ignore us.
Yep.
But like people will come in and be like, you're doing it wrong. That's essentially what they're saying.
Want to change us and tell us what to do.
You're doing it wrong. And it's like, well, we don't see it that way. We're going through episodes. We're breaking them down. If there's stuff that we like, we'll talk about it. But especially with a lot of the things that have been coming out recently, and unfortunately that's the way it kind of works with like YouTube. The stuff that you don't like and the stuff that's potentially popular that's not great, that you can break down and talk about why it isn't good. Beyond just like because I understand the complaint. It's like if you're just sitting there the whole time and you're like, well, this is woke, and they're just doing this, blah, blah, blah. Like, we'll sprinkle it in. Yeah. Because it's stuff that the cast has said. It's stuff that the showrunners have talked about. But I really, and we said this before the show came out, like I really wanted to take a lot of this just from a like, none of the story makes sense.
On its own.
Yeah,
exactly how we did with Halo.
Yeah, the character writing is weird, and it's like, listen, we'll focus on that stuff. Like we can set aside some of the like, the culture war stuff. If we for a second and just be like, let's just look at this show and try to explain, okay, Galadriel is saying she's doing these things, she has this information, but then for some reason, because the writers need to wait 3 episodes, she can't figure out for hundreds of years what the symbol Sauron's symbol means.
Yep.
Because she has to find out here. And it's weird. It's like, well, why did it take her so long?
Yeah.
Something that simple. There's a lot of,
It's called character development, bro.
Yeah. And some people are going to be able to look past certain things. I mean, I'm sure, like, aesthetically, there's going to be things that people are like, well, I liked this. And it's like, okay, I didn't. That's it.
Yep.
That's
okay.
Yeah. So I just, there's a lot of that going on where it's like, y'all, like, give us just a little, like, explanation, like, enough with, like, take or whatever the case may be, because you're not.
This is embarrassing.
It doesn't do anything, and so many people will, and I say so many, most people are pretty positive, or like they like the stuff that we're doing, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But you'll have the people come in, and it's like you all will just say the exact same things. And then occasionally we'll have someone come in, and they'll be like, well, here's why I like that. And I would love to have conversations with those people a little bit more in the comments. But most of the time they don't reply after that. So it's like...
Yeah, you don't have to... It's one of the things, we're not gatekeeping here. You know what I mean? We're not gatekeeping saying you can't like this show.
Right.
You know, if you don't agree with us, get out of here. No, like, let's have a conversation. And that's it.
Yeah.
Explain yourself. Let's, get down to something and have a good faith, productive conversation.
Mm-hmm. And even if it comes away, like, you have a comment, you're like, well, I disagree about this, and we talk about why or whatever, and we don't get anywhere, and you're going to still go watch the show and enjoy it for whatever reason. I do wonder sometimes, and that's fine, by the way, like, that we're not going to change your mind in a day or whatever, but I wonder sometimes about the people who, like, get really... And I'm kind of assuming they're agitated because it is just text. But the way they, like, do ad hominem attacks on us just right off the bat, like, that kind of stuff.
Taking everything so personally.
Yeah, it makes me think that us pointing out the problems gets them somewhere deep. Yeah. Because they realize it's true. I don't know this. I'm kind of just theorizing here. But it gets at them somewhere deep, because they know that we're right about this stuff, but they can't come to the acceptance of that for whatever their case may be. So, but dude, that's it. That's all I got. We're almost a 2-hour review for episode 3. This is why we had to cut it short last week, guys, because it took us about 2 hours to get through this.
But yeah, I don't think I have really anything else to say.
Neither do I. We'll be back next week with episode 4. And our House of the Dragon reviews are still going on. So far, we're liking it, but we're holding our breath.
Yes.
At this point, I'm holding my breath because I'm like, it's like, please don't be disappointing. I'm worried, dude. I'm so worried about that time jump. I'm so worried about that time jump, man. I like the 2 younger actresses that are playing Rhaenyra and Alicent right now.
I do.
And so I'm really worried it's gonna mess with the show if they continue to be prominent. And I know Rhaenyra it's supposed to be. So, all right. Thank you guys for listening to the review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Joseph, do you want to mention briefly about the value for value if anybody made it this far?
Yeah, so we utilize a value for value system, which means if you are getting any value out of the work we're doing on YouTube or our podcast, wherever, specifically here on YouTube, then you can donate to us in the form of your time, talent, and treasure. Just click the direct.me link in the description. There you'll find our PayPal link donation where you can, we're just asking for $1 a month for recurring payment or anything that you're willing to do. If you don't have the money, you can donate to us in the form of your time, talent, anything that you find interesting, whether if it's an article or a clip or video, you can send it to us. If we find it interesting, we'll use it on the show and credit you obviously too. Outside of that, if you're good at editing or artwork or any talent you have and you want to donate to us because of the value you think you're getting from us, you can do that. That's essentially what it is. And it's also, the reason why we set this up is because a lot of times there are content creators out there, which is, for us too. If you donate to us through YouTube, we'll take it. It's just that there are a lot of people who dislike YouTube and they'll donate through YouTube, and YouTube takes 30% or more. Yeah. And we understand that PayPal also sucks, but PayPal takes less of a percentage, and so it's a way to get around YouTube. And at least you're putting more money into the hands of your creators that you like.
Yep. All right. Well, until we are back next week with episode 4, y'all take it easy.
See ya.